Why is a different gaze pattern an alarm indicator of autism? The psychologist and speech therapist Gloria Acevedo Diaz has incorporated the latest advances in neuroscience, particularly those related to visual processing and the organization of the motor system, into her clinical and therapeutic practice within the field of early intervention for autism. Building on this solid scientific foundation and her extensive professional experience, she has developed and published this innovative postulate on the core disorder of autism, offering new perspectives and tools for its understanding and approach. Since Grunia Sukareva, Leo Kanner and Hans Asperger published the first descriptions of the symptoms of the disorder, lack of eye contact has been one of the most prominent diagnostic criteria for autism.
Contrary to what we believe when we look at the autistic person clinically, or what families often say, isn't it true that autistic people don't look or look less? In a study that we have carried out with Baron Cohen, what we have found, which is characteristic of autistic people, is not the absence of gaze, but the lack of communicative use of gaze. Yes. Isn't it that they look less? Is it that they don't look as much to communicate? Is it that they don't use the gaze with that mentalistic and communicative virtuality?
Having managed to record and objectify the early presence in babies of a different gaze pattern, a pattern of maximum attention to the object and absence of collection of social information, means that we have managed to detect the early dysfunction of a region of the brain that, from various lines of research in neuroscience, has been postulated as the core disorder of autism. This is a dysfunction of the superior temporal sulcus, a region of the brain that plays a crucial role in social perception and specifically in the processing of gaze. A group of neurons that make up the superior temporal sulcus are specifically involved in providing the baby with the ability to look in the direction that the adult is looking and pointing, a skill that, when everything goes well, is activated at 6 months of age.
Nico, mira, lo que hay aquí. Mira. Uy.
The superior temporal sulcus is the gateway for biological information, gestures, and language to the brain areas that contain mirror neurons. Information about the qualities and movements of objects and music enter through different pathways. Processing already clearly visible in babies from 6 months of age. The adequate activation of this temporo-parietofrontal circuit is involved in providing the baby with the ability to imitate and learn from the adult, in providing the baby with the ability to reproduce observed gestures, a skill that when everything goes well is already clearly observable at 9 months of age. And the ability, after the activation of other circuits linked to it, to communicate with the adult, a skill that when everything goes well is already clearly observable at 12 months of age. What happens then if a baby's temporal sulcus does not activate properly? Well, that baby will not process the gestures or words with which his parents address him. He will only process objects and melodies. He will be a baby who can't reproduce the movements adults make when addressing him because his brain doesn't process them. He will be a baby who lacks the ability to imitate and learn from adults.
He always seeks the attention of all grown-ups so that they interact with him, smile at him. But paradoxically, he doesn't seem to grasp any verbal communication, not a yes nor a no, nor anything in between. Let's observe if he gets it somewhat. He gestures with his hand, and it doesn't necessarily imply he desires it. We've been attempting these caminos for about 4 to 5 months now, and it has been a while since. The various toys, the stacking pyramids, the arms paired with the hands. Currently, she hits her head when she realizes there is a wall. Nevertheless, the head has been hit. The head neither mimics syllables, nor does it produce any speech.
It will be a baby who will gradually stop looking at people because gestures mean nothing to him, and will focus his gaze on objects, He will also be a baby who will not turn towards the person who speaks to him or calls him by name, but will immediately turn towards the source of sound and music that he likes.
When people tell you something they don't.
Does he listen? No, not before. Before I looked, because before I think I looked at you with her like she stopped doing, well then.
She often laughed with everyone and was always smiling. However, when he called her, she barely responded to her name.
That?
No, never that.
Lack of eye contact and failure to respond to a name are two clinical warning signs of autism. However, these don't usually become clearly noticeable until 18 months of age.
Vamos al agua. Ven. Ven, vamos al agua. Ti, 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 ti.
During the first year, a seemingly normal development is perceived. Although both motor and communicative development are qualitatively different, only a highly specialized professional can detect this.
Un aplauso.
As of February 2025, we still do not have any biological markers for autism. The diagnosis of autism is still based on clinical observation. The average age of first suspicion, according to the Spanish Autism Confederation, is 22 months, and the average age of diagnosis is between 3 and 4 years of age. The only standardized test that pediatricians have to detect early risk signs of autism is the MCHAT.
With POCTI, the screening test developed by Diaz, it is possible to objectively detect in babies from 9 months of age the presence of maximum attention to the object and absence of collection of social information, an alert indicator of autism. Early identification and care mitigate autism symptoms, diminish support requirements, and cut social expenses. With the Your Baby's Gaze project at Diaz, we have developed preventive action programs from 9 months of age, and we have been able to observe notable effects in the reduction of the symptoms of the disorder. But the early detection that POCTI provides will only make sense if it is followed by a specific action program for autism. Effective early intervention in autism requires a different intervention methodology than that applied to other disorders because babies with autism cannot learn by imitation. Professionals must know how to provoke learning through pathways other than those damaged. Mirror neurons are polymodal. They are audiovisual neurons that activate not only to visual stimuli, but also to tactile and auditory stimuli. Therefore, it is possible to induce intentional movement by sending the mirror circuit information it does not receive from the superior temporal sulcus through the undamaged visual object pathway, the sensorimotor pathway, and the auditory melodic pathway. With specific preventive action in the critical period of acquisition of social and communicative skills, it is possible to reduce the risk of regression around 18 months, as described in the developmental pattern of autism.
Más. Ay, muy bien. Palmas, palmitas, que pronto vendrá. Bien. Con los labios. Vamos. Toma. Bien. Sopla. Uy. Pa. Pocoyo. Pocoyo. Pocoyo.
These results reinforce the importance of acting specifically in the earliest stages of development, since even in cases where the response is not as dramatic as that of the child in the video, this intervention has proven to be key to significantly alleviating the symptoms of the disorder.
Profound developmental disorders are those in which those basic functions, those universals specific to the species, are affected in their development. It is affected in its construction, that those abilities that are specific to this species, that are different from those of others, have a critical moment of development. Phase in which the child very significantly develops those abilities that make him different, really different from other species.
Our interpretation is the basic disturbances in the development of the motor system. On the top of it, it starts this incapacity to understand the other from inside. And that's implied that re-education should be different from the traditional one, because it should be really stressing the capacity to act. Somebody said that in autism the synapses are sleeping, so you have to wake up these synapses, because the neurons are there. With age they become somehow malformed, there is abnormal development and so on. But at the beginning, the people who have predisposition, it's still everything there, but it's like a critical period in vision. If you don't have stimuli in that period, you don't evolve. So you must have stimuli in that period, and then you can improve a lot.
Vilayana Ramachandran proposes that, although complex disorders such as autism present multiple symptoms and factors, there may be a single underlying cause in which the mirror neuron system would be involved. Along the same lines, Dr. Monica Zilbovicius postulates this hypothesis based on her studies with neuroimaging techniques.
Anatomical and functional abnormalities of the superior temporal sulcus that occur in early brain development could constitute the first step in the cascade of neuronal dysfunction underlying autism.
Our goal in disseminating this work is to promote progress in the identification of the core disorder of autism. Through this video, we seek to foster interest in various fields of research to further study the genetics and development of the superior temporal sulcus, as well as the causes of its dysfunction during the early stages of brain development. Only through this comprehensive approach will we be able to better understand its potential role in the cascade of neuronal dysfunctions associated with autism spectrum disorder, and, ultimately, advance toward the discovery of much-needed potential solutions. We would welcome your opinions and research proposals on this topic. We are open to active or mentoring collaboration, always with a constructive approach that allows us to make progress in autism. Thank you.